Welcome to Meet the Press Now. I'm Chuck Todd in Washington, where the House of Representatives voted to elect a speaker again. And Republican leader Kevin McCarthy failed to win a majority of the chamber again, even after giving his critics even more concessions again. At this moment, we're now on the 9th ballot, which McCarthy is already on track to lose officially. It will be the third failed vote of the day as House Republicans continue to navigate the massive rupture that's long been band-aided over in their party. So campers, rise and shine. And don't forget your booties, because this day of legislative branch limbo may continue to repeat itself and repeat itself and repeat itself. Just like yesterday, 21 House Republicans broke with McCarthy in the 7th and 8th ballot. As a reminder, he can only afford 4 defections if everyone in the chamber votes. Today's failed votes come after McCarthy offered his critics a number of concessions, including one that would make him a veritable sitting duck as speaker if he ever got there, by allowing any one member to call for a vote to fire him at any time. When all the votes were tallied, once again, Democrat Hakeem Jeffries was the leading vote getter overall, 212 again. More importantly, McCarthy and his allies right now seem to be waging a battle to simply buy themselves time. And they may have made some progress, at least on that front today. Because so far, no one within McCarthy's camp has floated an alternative. And no alternative is quietly trying to whip votes. That's important. No one else has defected on the floor, at least not yet. Earlier today, McCarthy made it pretty clear that time is what he needs the most right now.
I think everybody of the members I've talked to have been very productive in their discussions, their ideas, and I just feel in these meetings the attitude of everyone is they want to find a solution that's positive.
Still, you have to ask the question, how much time does he really have here? Because McCarthy's critics continue to dig in. In fact, in some cases, they're enjoying themselves with all of this. At least Matt Gaetz appears to be. Right now, there appear to be at least 5 members of the Never Ever Kevin caucus who are signaling they cannot be swayed by any of McCarthy's wheeling and dealing. Just take a listen at Virginia's Bob Good earlier this morning.
I'm absolutely a no.
You're absolutely.
You don't ever have to ask me again if I'm a no. You never have to ask me again if I'm a no on Kevin McCarthy. I will never vote for Kevin McCarthy.
Well, so you're saying there's a chance. At the moment, we're in the same place we were on Tuesday and Wednesday. We are trapped in our own little Puxatawny on the Potomac, waiting to find out how many more days of winter McCarthy can withstand. So joining me now on Capitol Hill is NBC's Ali Vitale. And Ali, this is one time where television really fails to capture the true excitement of someone reading a list of 434 names over and over again. Ali, what do you got?
I don't know. I feel like it's pretty exciting, Chuck.
Right.
Maybe it's because my alarm clock went off doing the Groundhog Day song, I Got You, Babe. I don't know. It feels like it's exciting, except that nothing is changing. I mean, what we're watching in terms of what television can capture is McCarthy doing something that we didn't see him do in the prior days, which is talking to his colleagues who are voting against him. People like Congressman Ogles or Congressman-elect Ogles and Congressman-elect Clyde, people who were actively and still are actively voting against him. He's trying to engage with them. And we know that that's what his deputies are also doing behind closed doors, trying to find a way to seal the deal. But I think that what's important to underscore here is, A, as I was standing outside Tom Emmer's office where this group is huddling, there were members who were actively negotiating, leaving the room, going up to vote for someone who wasn't Kevin McCarthy, and then coming back down and continuing to negotiate. Just underscoring the cyclical idea of what we're doing here, which is that they're doing the same thing over and over again. And, oh, by the way, they don't have the votes to stop it, because Kevin McCarthy would love nothing more than what he said for us this morning. Right. More time to continue negotiating. And they don't have the votes right now for a motion to adjourn. That's why we're seeing us on our 9th round of balloting, because they don't have the votes at this point to actually stop it even.
Look, it was one McCarthy ally put it to me, the fact that nobody's even talking about an alternative McCarthy. Is that true?
Look, people are talking about the idea of could it be Steve Scalise. I don't know that his whip count is actually any better than what McCarthy's is. There are people who are outside the process who have talked to me about the fact that, you know, Scalise has just as many problems as McCarthy, and he may be tagged with the baggage of McCarthy having conceded already so much that these same folks could come back and say, all right, well, we actually would like what the other guy was promising us. And that would turn the entire thing on its head once again. So, yeah, people are talking about the potential for a Scalise, but like not seriously enough. And certainly Scalise is quiet as a church mouse on this.
And is there been any sort of acknowledgement or how uncomfortable tomorrow might be if they're voting, not getting a speaker on January 6th?
I mean, there's a lot of parallels that we can talk about here. I mean, the fact that Scott Perry is one of the central people in these negotiations with McCarthy in the group of holdouts, and he's also someone who was trying to install Jeffrey Clark atop the Department of Justice in the weeks before January 6th, that all of these members who are the holdouts are election deniers themselves. I mean, it's the impact of Trump on this conference. It's the impact of the hyperpartisan climate. All of that, I think, is important as we head into January 6th and potentially even into the weekend. I don't think that you can pull those things apart here. But at the same time, this is what happens when your margins are that small. Every single person's vote matters. And this is the end result. And
the fact that they can't adjourn, my guess is Chip Roy would be fine with the 10 people that maybe he speaks for voting to adjourn, but they need more than the Chip Roy 10 here.
Yeah.
Who do they negotiate? Is there anybody representing the rest of these 10, or is all of the other 10 individual conversations?
I think the other 10 are individual conversations. And there is a certain point here where, Scott Perry is someone who won't define what he wants publicly. He says he's mad, for example, about trust being broken because the concessions were leaked. The person who leaked the concessions was Matt Gaetz. It's not like McCarthy. I mean, yes, they were talking about it too, but it's not like McCarthy's team went out there and necessarily leaked. Matt Gaetz was the person who told our team what the concessions were. So at a certain point, you have to wonder where the good faith operators are. It's probably with the Chip Roys who want to see key procedural changes and key changes just to the way this place operates. It's definitely not with those 5 people who you talked about in your introduction who are the absolutely never Kevins.
Allie, correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, they actively are trying to keep Matt Gaetz out of the room, right? Because he doesn't seem to be playing. He has no interest in coming to a solution. I mean, the Trump antics, I think, tell you everything, no?
Yeah, but Gaetz doesn't. But frankly, it doesn't sound like Bishop wants to either. It doesn't sound like Boebert wants to either. It doesn't sound like several of these people want to. The chaos is the point. It's a feature, not a bug for some of these folks. And that's the problem here, too. You can negotiate all you want. And Rosendale said this on the floor. They started these conversations this summer. They are months and months down the road of House Freedom Caucus members letting McCarthy know what they want out of this process. And here you are on day 3, no closer to any kind of resolution.
And yet, as McCarthy allies like to point out, a majority of the Freedom Caucus supports McCarthy.
Exactly.
It is always worth pointing that out. All right, Allie, obviously, we're in the middle of the roll call. Don't go far, and we'll come back to you when we see the final round of development, see if any votes changed at all. Unlikely, I think that's the case. So joining me now with a little perspective from the House Republican Conference, South Dakota Congressman, Republican Dusty Johnson. Congressman, you're still a congressman-elect, at least for this Congress. All right. Is there an end game this week, or are we destined for at least another weekend of this?
Well, I wouldn't want to speculate on the timeline other than to say that there actually is real progress being made. I've been in some of these negotiations, and you can tell that there are the right people at the table and that they actually do want to get a deal.
That's an interesting way you just put that. But do you have are there 217 or 218 Republicans who want to come to a deal? Right? I guess that's the trick there. Chip Roy wants to get to a deal. I think he seems to be negotiating in good faith, but even he admits he only speaks for about 10 of these folks.
That is true. Part of the problem has been of the 20 holdouts. They all have kind of a little bit different story, and I get it. This is a complicated town, I think there are 218 votes there, but let's remember there don't have to be 218 votes. Nancy Pelosi, Newt Gingrich, Boehner, at different times, they all became elected speaker with 216 votes. Listen, I still think McCarthy's going to get 218. He's clearly well positioned for that, but it doesn't have to happen that way either.
Do you find these votes, the fact that you can't get the votes to adjourn, and we're sort of going through this process, is it helpful at all to McCarthy's cause, or is it hurtful?
Well, I think you can tell some of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle, the Democrats, have a certain amount of schadenfreude. They are enjoying the chaos on the right side of the aisle. So they've made it harder to navigate. They've made it harder to adjourn, but that's fine. You and I both know that what is happening on the House floor is mostly performative. There's kind of a political theater angle to that, and that's fine. We can do that. But I got to tell you that even while that's going on, there are good faith actors who are making real progress. Slow and steady is going to win the race.
I've had another McCarthy ally say to me, the fact that nobody else is sniffing around the speakership is proof that McCarthy, at least you guys, and I'm curious if you're willing to go weeks if necessary on this?
That's what has been fascinating to me. We have a tendency to talk about, oh my gosh, are there 4 or 5 or 6 never Kevins? And isn't that a huge problem? Here is a problem for everybody else. There are 50 or 60 or 70 only Kevins. There is not another candidate out there that can secure the votes necessary to become Speaker of the House. Listen, maybe it's going to take us 6 months to figure that out. I hope it won't. Maybe it'll take us 6 weeks. I don't think it will. I think in the next few days it's going to become real clear that the best thing to do for this country is to have us get together, get Kevin McCarthy 218 votes, and let's get to work.
Is there a point where you think Kevin McCarthy's given up too much?
Well, no deal is easy in this town, and kind of by definition, that means that when you have a deal, everybody's a little uncomfortable, everybody's a little irritated, everybody has the sense that they've given up too much. I'm the chairman of a group of between 70 and 80 pragmatic conservatives who care about getting things done, the Republican Main Street Caucus. We had a meeting today, and their message loud and clear to me was, you know what, we still think we're headed in the right direction. We're probably getting irritated enough where it means that we're getting close to a deal, and I think we are.
What kind of feedback are you getting from home, from constituents?
Honestly, I hear way more from constituents about the border and about inflation and about all of the snow we have had in South Dakota the last couple of weeks than I do about all of this inside baseball. To the extent they want to talk about it, clearly, this is a bit of a black eye. They want a U.S. House that functions, that looks like we're all adults, that we're big boys and big girls. This is not a good look. I know that. But at some point, we're going to land the plane. And I actually think that the Republicans will be better positioned because if we don't figure this out in month 1, then we are going to have this Greek tragedy repeated week after week. Well, let's just figure out how to work with one another right now.
I was just going to say that was the message James Comer seemed to have yesterday. He's willing to have this awful fight now because if you paper over it, you're just going to have it for the first budget. You're just going to have it for an appropriations bill. You're just going to have it for a defense funding bill. Is he right?
He is right. We have all been in those professional relationships or sometimes a personal relationship where you just don't really have the fight right then because you don't want to. Maybe you're conflict avoidant. That isn't actually good. At some point, if you don't have a fight on Monday, you got to have it on Tuesday or Thursday or the next Monday. We are getting closer. There are conversations, and I'm not kidding around. There are conversations that are happening between legitimate, moderate Republicans from swing districts and ultra-conservatives from Trump 50 districts that would never have happened if not for this admittedly chaotic, odd period before we elect a speaker.
Dusty Johnson, Republican from the statewide elected seat in South Dakota. Appreciate you coming on.
Thank you.
Good luck and brew some more coffee. All right, let me bring in the panel. I got Audrey Fahlberg, reporter for The Dispatch, Donna Edwards, former Maryland Congresswoman and NBC News analyst, and Brendan Buck, former communications advisor to House Speakers John Boehner and Paul Ryan, and also an NBC News political analyst. All right, Audrey, let me start with you. Has today been a good day or a bad day for Kevin McCarthy? I'm trying to figure that out.
I don't think it's been a good day for Kevin McCarthy. It's funny, I had an interesting conversation yesterday with Congressman Tim Burchett of Tennessee. He's a McCarthy supporter, but if you've been watching C-SPAN, he sidles himself next to the no votes, which has been kind of funny to watch.
Yeah.
But he said, you know, frankly, a lot of these opposition voters, they have really strong speeches. You know, leadership, there's no incentive for them to keep this on the floor because with every additional speech comes more negative headlines for Kevin McCarthy. I think that he probably wants to get off the floor and have more discussions with folks in, behind closed doors. But I think, frankly, what's really struck me today is that, the defectors, they're kind of disunified in terms of who they're, who they actually want, whether they care. And whether the concessions that Kevin McCarthy has offered in the past 24 hours will move them.
I do feel like today, Brendan, by watching Lauren Boebert go in a different direction and try to create a new candidate in a congressman from Oklahoma, Hearn, I think he's second term that he's in, versus Chip Roy doing what he's doing over here with sort of the Donald's camp. I guess, does that mean there's glass isn't half full, but there's condensation in it if you're Kevin McCarthy?
Yeah, I mean, the fundamental problem is, and you hit at it, if he cuts a deal, and he is giving away the store right now.
Do you think he is? I mean, you know these little rules. I mean, how much is he giving away?
I don't want to bore people, but the ability to even bring a bill to the floor is threatened by what he's doing, and the rules that he's talking about have the potential to tank everything they do.
Could he become a speaker in name only if he goes through with some of these deals?
And another interesting dynamic here, and Ali was talking about this a little bit. He's effectively negotiating for whoever's next if it's not Kevin McCarthy, and she said Steve Scalise is being really quiet. I can't imagine Steve Scalise is particularly happy at the things that Kevin McCarthy, even if Kevin McCarthy gets there, Steve Scalise is going to be the majority leader in charge of managing the committees and running an agenda through the House. He's made it much harder to do that. So, and the things that he has offered, I think one of the reasons he wanted to get into a conference meeting was to present this to the rest of the conference and show these 10 or 20 people, like, he's giving a lot. He's getting over his skis. This is going to make a lot of people really uncomfortable. It's going to make the place very difficult to manage. So maybe he can say, like, look, guys, I've given. The problem is, even if he does get a deal here, he's only halfway there, and he has nothing else to give, really. Nothing else to give.
You know, I've been thinking about this. Does this mean that the House is going to only pass bills via discharge petition? If McCarthy gets, I'm fast forwarding here a little bit, but let's say McCarthy figures out a way to get the speakership, but he has to give all this stuff up. It feels as if his hands are going to be so tied, and the Rules Committee could be so tied, and you know the House well, and it's an awkward way to govern, but it might be discharge petitions by, like, you know, Biden Republicans, essentially those Biden Republican districts, the Don Bacons of the world. Is that the only way that things are going to govern?
Well, and even that will be difficult because that then presumes that you're going to get a group of Democrats to go along with that. And I think that will be really difficult. I mean, when I look at the rules package, if that goes forward, even whether it's McCarthy or somebody else, it is going to be one of the weakest speaker tenures that we've ever seen. At least in the last several decades. And I think that is really difficult going forward in terms of governance. It's difficult to imagine even getting things like some appropriations packages, certainly the debt ceiling, continuing government funding, all of those things that really hinge on a speaker being able to bring legislation to the floor. And so it's hard to imagine.
Audrey, who are you watching for on the only McCarthy side, where they're like, hey, dude, enough with this. Stop caving in.
Well, so I think it's really interesting that, we just heard from Dusty Johnson that Main Street Republicans are unified behind Kevin McCarthy. I don't think that that's necessarily true. I was speaking with a member of the Main Street Coalition, actually, and he was saying, a lot of McCarthy supporters are getting frustrated by how many concessions McCarthy is making to this group. They're causing chaos. It's unclear that they're going to even budge at all. Moving the motion to vacate to just a single member, promising not to get involved in open, safe primaries, but then also promising Freedom Caucus members coveted seats on the Rules Committee. One Main Street Republican was like, why should they be rewarded for this? They should be making their case to the steering committee. This doesn't make any sense. You should be prioritizing the people who have been with you, all this time.
By the way, Brennan, this Club for Growth deal with Kevin McCarthy's Super PAC, first of all, just the optics of that Super PACs are negotiating to decide the speakership, right? Now, it's had no impact. That's the irony here. I mean, it moved all of no votes.
Yes.
Obviously, this was a Club for Growth advertisement to donors.
Yes, this is the swampiest thing, and it's being led by the anti-swamp group. They basically said, I want our Super PAC to go negotiate with your Super PAC about who can engage in what primaries. It completely ridiculous, but also way overstated. I mean, the Republican leadership has somewhat famously not gotten really involved in primaries. It hasn't been very effective. It's messy. It's not worth it. But McCarthy created some...
I have a feeling some Senate Republicans may disagree with you next cycle.
It's much harder in the House than in the Senate to kind of get involved in primaries. And so when I was in Speaker's office, we rarely did it. McCarthy did a little bit more, but it created this perception that he's running around picking less conservative candidates in primaries. And there were a couple places where they played, but not a lot. So, but it's one of those big perception problems, but not actual in reality.
Well, I bring this up because, Donna, you were saying that actually there's been... If it wasn't for this, Hakeem Jeffries would be getting some grief from the left because he's been looking at trying to make sure he is a governable caucus.
Well, there was some pushback among progressives around that, and I think it has forced the leadership, actually, the Democratic leadership, to pull back where it concerns getting involved in primaries. But, you know, I just think that the optics of these two outside PACs influencing the speakership when there's not supposed to be legally any coordination with, you know, sitting members. I mean, that's
our
just
campaign
ridiculous.
finance laws. They're kind of like yield signs, right? They're just kind of suggestions until somebody decides to enforce it. Anyway, you guys are sticking around for the hour, so I appreciate that. We're in the middle of vote counts, and it looks like it is going the exact pattern that it has been going. We are sticking closely to the story, obviously. We'll bring you the developments as they happen. Plus, we have Biden on the border. The White House announced new border policies today as the president prepares to visit the border for the first time as president. We'll do that this weekend. We're going to give you details just ahead. You're watching Meet the Press Now.
After a rough few years, we're seeing some really bright spots, I believe, and across our entire nation. And I think we've made some real progress in the last going on 2 years now, almost 2. But now we need to focus on implementing some of the big laws that we actually passed.
Welcome back. Believe it or not, there is other things happening in Washington. That was President Biden in the last hour. He was holding his first cabinet meeting of 2023, touting his administration's legislative achievements in 2022. All of this comes after earlier today, Biden announced new border policies aimed at granting asylum to tens of thousands of migrants without further overwhelming the border. The process would allow migrants to apply for asylum remotely, granting them the ability to live and work in the United States for 2 years if they are accepted.
This new process is orderly, it's safe, and it's humane, and it works. Since we created the new program, the number of Venezuelans trying to enter America without going through a legal process has dropped dramatically. Today, I'm announcing that my administration is going to expand the parole program for people not only from Venezuela, but from Cuba, Nicaragua, and Haiti.
While some migrants will be given a new pathway outside the border, the rules also expand Title 42 restrictions, allowing officers to deport more migrants who show up at the border. So to understand a little bit more about this policy, I got Mike Memoli here. He has the latest in the announcement from the White House. And our Homeland Security correspondent here at NBC News, Julia Ainsley, will be here to break down exactly what these new policies mean at the border. So, Mike, let me start with you. I thought the president's offhand comment, I want to get a look myself. Let's see what's going on down there. I'm thinking, doesn't he already know? Hasn't Mayorkas told him? But obviously this has got a lot of politics and presidential politics sort of underlying this. I noticed the former president put out his own immigration cartel attack plan today as well.
Well, Chuck, what's interesting about this is I remember talking about immigration with you last year, and we can say in the last year now. I think that's the first time I've said it. And I made the point that the White House really didn't want to touch the issue of immigration at all heading into the midterms at a period when they controlled all levers of government in Washington. Well, suddenly the White House is eager to talk about immigration, and it's because Republicans now have the House of Representatives, at least in theory, until they elect a speaker. And so what we're seeing here is something we had reported in October, which was as soon as Republicans did take control of the House, the White House was going to engage in a conversation about immigration because they've been frustrated for years that Republicans are easily able to demagogue on an issue that lends itself easily to demagoguery without having any real skin in the game in terms of a solution here beyond the restrictive policies in the Trump administration that the White House says just sowed chaos and made this situation even more difficult to manage. And so everything you've seen from the White House this week, whether it was the infrastructure event in Ohio, Kentucky the other day, or the event he's going to be holding tomorrow, marking the anniversary of January 6th, is all about sharpening the contrast with Republicans, the president as a governing actor and Republicans as simply one about theater. And so that's really all that's at play here. And the Republicans really couldn't have played more into that White House strategy any more than what we've seen of obviously on the Hill today.
And Mike, do they have a plan C on Title 42?
Well, I think Julia is probably the best person to answer this question. They really are rolling out policies that they had planned to roll out if Title 42 was lifting in part. And so now we're in this sort of holding pattern for a period of months where they're waiting for the Supreme Court to tackle this issue. Obviously, the White House argues they have a Plan C, which is their immigration bill that they introduced on day one. And that's why they're eager to continue to kick the can to Congress to say they have to come to the table with some solutions now, too.
All right, Mike, appreciate that. Let me move over to you, Julia. You know, what he announced today when it comes to seeking asylum actually reminded me of an idea that a member of Congress floated on this program here a couple weeks ago in the middle of December, which was let them file for asylum, you know, before they even cross into Mexico from Guatemala. So explain how this remote asylum application process works.
Well, they've just launched it today. It's actually going to be an app, something that migrants can do on their phones. We know that that's honestly how a lot of migrants get in touch with people who can take them across the border. It's not something that they would be necessarily pressed to have access to. What is tough, though, is some of the requirements for that application. We've seen it for Ukrainians. We've seen it for Venezuelans. You have to have a U.S.-based sponsor who can attest that you will be taken care of when you come to the United States. And I just have to underscore, based on the people I've been speaking to at the border, I was just in El Paso 2 weeks ago. I'd never seen it like that before. There were migrants sleeping in the airport as soon as I got off the plane. There were children sleeping on the streets and sub-freezing temperatures. I mean, it was a really dire situation. And a lot of these people say, you know, they really didn't have a choice. And also, they didn't know anyone here. This is unlike the population we used to see from Central America. Those, by and large, coming to reunite with family. They knew exactly where they were going in the United States. Oftentimes, these people don't have sponsors. And so what we're hearing a lot from immigration advocates today, who are really kind of up in arms about the restrictions this imposes, is saying that this is like slamming a door and cracking a window, that the Biden administration is actually expanding Title 42 at the same time that they've told the Supreme Court they would be okay with lifting it, and that it actually doesn't even need to be in place anymore.
Isn't that what they have done?
They're really saying, look, these are some pretty...
That is what they did, right? They kind of expanded Title 42.
Right, they've expanded it.
Yeah.
They did, but these policies will even stay in place after Title 42 lifts. They'll use other authorities. They've come up with this agreement with Mexico to take more people of certain nationalities back into Mexico. And they will also be implementing what Stephen Miller would call a transit ban. Stephen Miller would say the Biden administration is stealing his idea today. And that was that what Mayorkas announced today from DHS, which I feel like has kind of gone under the radar, but will probably have the most long-lasting implications, and that is to say that any immigrant that crosses through another country and does not first claim asylum there is not eligible when they come to the southern border. That will have implications that will last far beyond the point that anyone even knows what Title 42 is.
To bottom line this, Julia, the only folks that are going to hear their asylum cases heard at this point are Haitians, Nicaraguans, Venezuelans, Ukrainians, Cubans. Is that fair to say?
Well, there are still some people who have different exceptions in different places. For example, in some parts of southern Texas, if you cross with a child under 7, you can come in. It all has to do with who Mexico will take back, and there are certain days they can't take back all of the people that are trying to cross just because their shelters get full. So really, it's a crapshoot sometimes. But yes, those people will have more protections than people coming from Mexico and Central America.
And anybody that in poverty is not something you can cite in your asylum claim, right? I mean, you can, but it's not going to be granted.
Yeah, that's right. You have to be part of a protected social class. That can be, and this has been debated, it could be being a woman and you're subjected to domestic violence. It could be that you're subjected to domestic violence because someone you are in a relationship with is a gang member and they are targeting you. But, you know, these stories run the gamut. Lawyers often know who will qualify and who won't. It does seem like it would be a good idea to have people apply rather than make these terribly dangerous journeys and end up sleeping on the street. But a lot of people you speak to say that's not not the way the asylum policies were written. It was written for people to be able to escape an emergency. And we actually just saw Democratic Senator Robert Menendez today come out against the Biden administration and saying this actually goes against the values etched on the Statue of Liberty. I mean, he'd be a key ally in any immigration legislation they're trying to push on the Hill. Right. But people are really worried about the fact that, yes, some people will qualify, but far more would be blocked from seeking asylum.
Be curious whether the Biden administration is happy or sad to get attacked by fellow Democrats for being too tough on the border, right? I mean, just on the political space, curious on that one. Anyway, Mike Bemley, Julia Ainsley, thank you both for giving some clarity to the story. One more piece of news, by the way, out of the White House today. We're expecting an announcement tomorrow of a new round of military assistance for Ukraine. It will include equipment the U.S. has not previously provided. President Biden said today that Bradley fighting vehicles will be a part of the new package. It comes as earlier today, the Kremlin unilaterally ordered a 36-hour ceasefire for Russian Orthodox Christmas this weekend. In a statement that was posted onto Telegram, Putin directed his Minister of Defense to introduce a ceasefire beginning noon tomorrow in Ukraine. For what it's worth, the Ukrainian government dismissed the announcement, calling it lies and hypocrisy. An advisor to President Zelensky said that there can only be a temporary truce when Russian forces leave occupied territories of Ukraine. Up next, extremely encouraging news today on the condition of Buffalo Bills safety Damar Hamlin, 3 days after he collapsed on the field in the middle of Monday Night Football. And we continue to keep our eyes on the House floor. We still don't have a speaker after 9 attempts. We don't know, are they going to take a break, or do we have another roll call? We'll see what happens. Well, put your little hand in mine. We got you, babe. You're watching Meet the Press Now. Welcome back. Right now, we are awaiting a new update from officials with the Buffalo Bills, but all of this comes on the same day that we received our first piece of good news out of Cincinnati in the last 72 hours, where doctors say Bills safety Damar Hamlin has made substantial improvements over the last 24 hours. Doctors at the University of Cincinnati Medical Center say Hamlin is beginning to wake up, and he's able to move his hands and feet. He's unable to speak, but can communicate in writing, and he even asked who won Monday night's game. Hamlin collapsed after a hit during that game and went into cardiac arrest. Maura Barrett is in Cincinnati and has more.
Chuck, really encouraging news coming out of the ICU here at UC Health. Doctors speaking with reporters for the first time, giving an update on behalf of the family of Damar Hamlin. We have learned that he is awake and he's interacting with doctors in a way that doctors say show that he is neurologically intact. They said he's made extreme strides in recovery in the last 24 hours. Remember, this is after the last 3 days he's been on a ventilator, sedated after suffering that cardiac arrest. So a lot of good news coming from doctors. They say that the fact that he received that CPR on the field just minutes after suffering the cardiac arrest was a game changer, that the outcome could have been a lot different if his heart wasn't shocked back into rhythm just moments after he collapsed and then was taken to the medical professionals here that have been treating him over the past few days. They also said that they have no reason to believe that he wouldn't make a full recovery and that returning to football could be possible as well. They said that in terms of next steps in the immediate future, they want to make sure that he can breathe fully on his own. He's not speaking with doctors yet because he still is using some element of that breathing tube, but they estimate that that could be something that comes in the next coming days. They want to see him walking and talking on his own before they discharge him. And to get a sense of how Damar is doing emotionally, they said he was very surprised when he woke up to learn that he had been sedated for the last 2 days, surprised to learn about all the focus that we've been putting on this story because obviously he hadn't been in tune with what was going on. But he said, the doctor said that he was able to write notes to them, and he said that they said that he wrote a note asking, did we win? Now, referring to the game, obviously showing his state of mind and his commitment to the game, but doctors elaborated that they said, yes, you won the game of life. Everyone here, fans, players, families, really emphasizing that this has been more about the game of football, more about the health of this 24-year-old. And so players, fans emphasizing that they're still sending prayers his way, but a lot of encouragement here as he continues his road to recovery. Chuck?
Maura Barrett in Cincinnati for us. It did feel like a lot of people could exhale after hearing that news. After the break, watch out for the first step. It's a doozy. McCarthy's allies and a key conservative group strike a deal as Republicans scramble to break an impasse over the speakership. You're watching Meet the Press Now. Welcome back to Meet the Press Now. Is it too early for flapjacks? We are awaiting the gavel on what will be another failed effort by Kevin McCarthy to secure the votes needed to become Speaker. It actually looks like his support on the 9th ballot will fall. Another vote is one of his allies wasn't present on the floor. Ken Buck didn't vote in this round. And while McCarthy has not been able to reach a deal with Republican holdouts, a PAC run by his supporters, the Congressional Leadership Fund, did reach a deal with another powerful organization, the Club for Growth. And they reached this deal late last night. Under this agreement, the McCarthy-aligned Super PAC vowed not to spend in any open seat primaries in safe Republican districts. Of course, depends on your definition of safe district. But as we've seen today, that deal may not have done much good for McCarthy himself. 6 Republicans endorsed by the Club for Growth in November have continued to vote against McCarthy. Those 6 are enough to sink his bid for the speakership. So, joining me now, former Republican Congressman David McIntosh. He is the president for Club for Growth, and I would assume was a part of securing this agreement. Mr. McIntosh, thanks for coming on.
Great to be with you, Chuck.
Let me start with, you came to this deal. You're now no longer opposing Kevin McCarthy for Speaker. Let me ask this. Has the Club for Growth endorsed Kevin McCarthy for Speaker?
Yeah, Chuck, what we did was work out the Super PAC to Super PAC, the arrangement for what will happen in the primaries in the next election. We have said that if they also work out a rules agreement, then we would support Kevin McCarthy. So there's that contingency in there, but it seems to me like they're making progress on that. That's obviously something that's happening behind closed doors after the votes are being taken. Yeah. But I think Kevin has made some good offers about how to run the House in a very democratic, small d democratic way, where members have more opportunity to offer amendments, where you've got the vote on whether the speaker should continue in the chair. Mm-hmm. All of those things have been in place for 200 years, but in recent times were taken away from individual members and consolidated by Nancy Pelosi into the speaker's office. So I think that's what is up for debate now, and I'm seeing good progress on it.
Let me ask you this. Are you making calls? I mean, you have 6 of the no's on McCarthy. Bishop, Burkeen, Luna, Chip Roy, among them. Are you making calls to them and telling them, hey, make this deal with McCarthy, we're good?
We are very supportive of what they have been doing, and I've urged them all along to work to try to get McCarthy to, if he's going to be the next speaker, to agree to these rule changes that they are working on. So we're staying in touch with them. I'm proud of what they're doing, and I think it will end up making a better House of Representatives. You know, honestly, quietly, I've heard from some Democrat members that they're hoping these rules changes go in too, so they're in place if they get the majority back. You'll get a better functioning House with this new rules package.
I have to tell you, I'm a little bit perplexed about your organization wanting to rig a system in their favor. And I say it this way. The Club for Growth famously is about economic freedom. You want less government regulation, essentially let the free market have its will. By cutting this deal with this other Super PAC, you're essentially saying, no, I want special rules for the market for Club for Growth. Does that not, you not at all see the appearance of hypocrisy here?
You know, in some ways, it's a practical arrangement, Chuck. Their mission is to get a majority of Republicans. Our mission is to get conservatives elected into those seats. If we come up against each other, we spend a lot of money in the primaries that Republicans would want to have in the general election to try to expand the majority. So I look at it as a win-win arrangement. It's an understanding we both have as Super PACs about how we want to approach the next election.
Okay, but it is still, it does seem like you want special treatment. And I guess it, to me, runs against what I thought Club for Growth was about.
Well, you know, in elections, what our goal is to win the election and get the champion for those principles you mentioned, free markets, limited government, and more democracy in the system. And so I think it's worth it for us.
Let me ask you this. I know that you have some Bitcoin money that was donated. Do you know if you had FTX money? And some of this stuff you don't have to report yet, but at some point we'll find out. What have you done with your Bitcoin money and your FTX money?
I don't think we got any money from FTX, the company. We'll have to go back and look if any of the owners of it as individuals did, but nothing from the company. Bitcoin is now becoming accepted in a lot of places, and I was proud that we were one of the first Super PAC entities to take it. And honestly, one of our positions is we should protect Bitcoin from being regulated. They need to do something to regulate the marketplace. FTX showed that. But Bitcoin should be embraced by the financial markets as a very stable form of cryptocurrency.
You think cryptocurrency is legitimate and not a Ponzi scheme?
Not Bitcoin, because you have to mine it, you have to discover it, and it's widely accepted by people. Interestingly, a lot of folks who don't have other financial assets, minorities, young people, they're intrigued by this. They've invested in it. Some of them have done well in their savings with Bitcoin. And so it creates opportunities for more Americans.
Well, the perception of, hey, free money coming out of nowhere. But I think that's sort of, I think we're realizing that it's not tangible. It's not anything.
That's the difference. Bitcoin does have backing with it because you've got to spend energy to mine the Bitcoin. Whereas FTX, it was a Ponzi scheme with smoke and mirrors run offshore because the regulators couldn't get their act together and say, this is what you have to do to be qualified in the United States. So I'm hoping that what we see is the Security and Exchange Commission actually say, yes, we can have exchanges for Bitcoin and other places, but they've got to follow the rules.
Former Congressman David McIntosh, president of Club for Growth, thanks for coming on and sharing your perspective with us. Appreciate it. And we have some breaking news. There's no recess. There's no adjournment. There's only a 10th ballot. We are now headed to the most ballots ever since 1856. We surpassed the last record of 9 ballots. That was in the 20th century. We're going to check back in on where the latest vote stands with our man at the big board, Mr. Kornacki. Plus, Michigan Democratic Senator Debbie Stabenow announced she won't seek re-election in 2024, setting up what will be perhaps one of the 3 or 4 most important Senate races in a swing state in a presidential year in 2024. You're watching Meet the President. No dinner break for you. They are moving to a 10th ballot now on the House floor, which means we have surpassed, I believe, the record in 1923, and we now go back to 1856. But Steve Kornacki's at the big board, and he will correct my math if I have messed up my timeline there. So, Steve, 10 ballots, right? This takes us now. We have to go to 1856.
Yeah, I mean, hey, let's take a look at the history here.
Yeah.
We've just passed 100 years ago was the last time it went past a single ballot, and that was in 1923. Frederick Gillette of Massachusetts won on the 9th ballot. We now in 2023 are going to the 10th ballot. In 1833, it was settled on the 10th. They're all pre-Civil War from this point on.
Country was really stable politically in that period of time, as you know, Steve.
Yeah, I mean, listen, 1855, there it is, Nathaniel Prentice Banks, that's the all-time record, took 133 ballots. So right now, this is going to tie it. We are now tied for the 7th longest in history with no resolution in sight. So the next ballot after that, the 6th, the 5th, I mean, you could see we're quickly moving into, territory and waters we have not been in a very long time.
And yet we've had 3 ballots today and nothing's changed. I mean, I guess Hearns got officially nominated. That's what's changed, but the numbers haven't changed.
Yeah, the numbers haven't changed, although I guess technically on that last vote, McCarthy's number comes down to 200. Ken Bucket, apparently there's some reporting that there's he had a medical appointment. But yeah, and the problem is simply this, and we've been saying this, and it's really that my thinking on this is hardened because you were wondering how many of these votes were kind of like soft against McCarthy, and then you saw all the concessions that were given out overnight and all of the wheeling and dealing that's been going on, and not a single one has budged, not a single one has even just, say, voted present as an indication of, hey, you're showing good faith here, maybe I'll back off being fully opposed. Nothing changing in that direction at all. And so the math for McCarthy is, as long as all of the Democrats continue to show up and all of them continue to vote for Hakeem Jeffries, the maximum number of Republicans that he can have voting for somebody else, that McCarthy can have voting for somebody else, is 4. And then you just look at these names and the things that you look at the things that Gates is saying. It doesn't seem like there's any circumstance that he'd vote for McCarthy. Boebert, Biggs, the things that they're saying. I think there was a quote today from Bob Good where he said, "You don't have to ever ask me again. I'm a no." I mean, he can afford 4 like that, and you just scroll through this list, and it seems there's a lot more than 4 who really are feeling like they fall into that category. So even if he starts to pick off a few here with these concessions, he's got to pick off. This is a list of 21 Republicans. He's got to pick off 17 of them.
Right. Steve Kornacki, ballot 10. Get your coffee. Thank you, sir. I'm back here with the panel, Audrey, Donna, and Brendan. Audrey, I was thinking, I guess the only asset about continuing to vote, not adjourning to do this, is reporters are in a split screen, right? There aren't as many people following the meetings. I mean, maybe real stuff's happening right now while we're all paying attention to a mundane roll call vote.
That's very much possible, but right now things aren't looking great for McCarthy. Ken Buck was apparently not present in the last vote, but in the middle of the 7th, I had a conversation with him, and he said, I'm frankly not sure how I'm going to vote next round. I'm really on the fence. I just spoke with, the 20 holdouts. They don't seem like they're going to shift. So right now it seems like he's still in McCarthy's camp, but he's inching closer and closer to, possibly making a new decision. I think that Steve Kornacki is absolutely right. There are some people who simply don't seem like they're going to budge. If we go back to the Congressional Leadership Fund point, for example, they've agreed to not get involved in open, safe primaries. I asked Ralph Norman about that earlier. He said, I think that's a great move. But, then I asked Lauren Boebert, and she said, I don't care. I think that they're all liars. So, that's not going to shift her vote.
Brendan, why do you think the Gang of 20 hasn't nominated somebody that's legitimate, like a potentially truly legitimate challenger to McCarthy, like Scalise, just to throw it out there?
It would be interesting. I don't know that they would vote for Steve Scalise, honestly. And this is the problem. I don't think anybody can directly challenge Kevin McCarthy, a credible alternative, because that will upset McCarthy people, the so-called only Kevin people, and that will create a bunch of angst. All of a sudden,
I have somebody claiming that his support's actually deeper now than it was 3 days ago.
I think that's very
possible. Do you buy that?
I think that's very possible. At some point, Kevin McCarthy's argument, even to these guys, is going to be, look, you wanted a fighter? I'm fighting. Look at me. I'm a fighter. I will fight. You wanted to see someone fight.
And he's patient. I'll say that.
Yeah, and he has the record for the longest floor speech. At some point, maybe he'll be able to convince them, okay, well, maybe there's something there. Kevin McCarthy, I didn't think you were tough. You're tougher than I thought you were. I wouldn't be surprised if that's a talking point you start hearing next week.
Donna, I mean, just observe. Forget the politics of this. Are you surprised that he's withstanding this?
Well, no. I mean, he's been angling for this speakership since he was cast out previously before Ryan, and so I'm not surprised at all. It's all he has. It's the only play that he has, and it's not like Kevin McCarthy believes in a set of things. He believes in wanting to be speaker, and so if not that, then what is there for him in this Congress?
It does seem as if Ralph Norman, Dan Bishop, they have said they don't want to be hard-nosed. But they don't seem to say what they want.
Right.
I mean, that's what's so, one of my favorite questions to every Republican member is what do you tell your friend at home who says, hey, what the heck's going on and what's the sticking point? There isn't the elevator sticking point. Well, it's this. What is the this?
Right, exactly. I think with Chip Roy, he's making legitimate procedural, institutional arguments. He's
spoken like a former staffer. You're right.
He's somebody who's made clear that he's not going to talk to the press about what's happening behind closed doors, whereas you have somebody like Lauren Boebert who's just said, I'm not going to vote for him, no matter what happens. But I think you're right that they are kind of disunified in terms of what concessions they're kind of willing to.
Dusty Johnson made that, you talked to him about it. It's hard because you have individual issues. And some of them are not rational, frankly, and some of them are very personal, and you can't change the fact that somebody hates somebody.
Bob Good seems like he's just personal.
Bob Good and Matt Gaetz are never voting for him. Right. I think everybody else is potentially in play to some degree. So basically, he has a margin of 2. Write them off. Mm-hmm. Of the rest of those, you can lose 2. And I think you could get there. I think if you bring in the half of them with this deal that they're working on, and then isolate the rest. And there is peer pressure, and over time, maybe no other concession needs to be made. time can change things. It really can. At some point, you can wake up and say, I think I've made my point. I'm going to give up at this point. That could happen.
But I don't know what that portends for the future, because when you look at some of the things that have been said publicly and openly that are hostile, they are mean, they are personal, those are things that you can never take back.
That's what I wonder.
How do you govern after that?
That's what I wonder.
They'll figure that out then. I mean, look, this is, forget everything else. Everything else, you can't, obviously they can't.
I don't know. I still think we are going to be governing by discharge petition. That whatever happens here.
I think that's an optimistic take.
Well, the point is it might be the only option, is my point. Anyway, Audrey, Donna, and Brendan, thank you. Another busy day on the hamster wheel here at Meet the Press Now. We'll be back tomorrow with more. Hallie Jackson picks up News Now coverage right now.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.